From the makers of Spiders Will Eat Your Face comes The Animal Saga, 3 films including Spiders Will Eat Your Face, Hamsters, The History, and Goldfish Bowl, Death by Glass. All this pet history on Amazon and Big Weasel, LilWeasel.club.
Hi, my name's Joe.
And I'm Mike.
And you're listening to How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up? The podcast. And this week we'll be reviewing Mother.
Oh, no, there's an exclamation point, so I think it's actually Mother!
Hey everyone, and welcome to How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up? Featuring 2 guys getting coleslawed and reviewing movies in a weekly podcast form.
And thank you to Lindsay Daly on Facebook for that synonym suggestion. Lindsay, come back on the podcast. We're ready.
Yeah.
Frequent podcast guest. But let us delay no further. Betwixt us,
Who's this
for the very first time, Matt Pidi.
Gentlemen, I'm so happy to finally be on this podcast.
Oh, it's time.
We're
It's
so
been a
happy to
long
have
time
you.
coming.
It
and
has.
I made it.
I remember we were at like a party, and you're like, dude, I want to review Rogue One. Like, maybe even like a year before it came out or something.
Yeah, you guys were like, yeah, get in line.
Yeah. I think we even had, I don't know, something. It's just, I feel like that's a little...
It's been a long time
It's been
coming.
a long time coming.
Well, I mean, this is nothing new for us. Went to college with these boys, and we talked about movies a lot.
Sitting around, drinking beer,
talking about movies. That was kind of like a thing anyway.
Right,
so
yeah,
this is just talking shop with my friends, and I'm stoked to be here.
It's all natural.
But Matt, you do a lot. You do some stuff, man.
I do things and stuff.
So you are one of the guitarists for Riverside Guitar Duo,
I am, yes.
a classical guitar duo from the Riverside area.
No, we I'll shout out my guitar duo partner and good buddy Matt Kaplan. We met when we were in grad school together at Mannes College for Music in New York City, and one of our various spots where we would set up shop and play guitar was along Riverside Drive. So we were like, I think we can steal this name.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do play in a classical guitar duo, which sounds super nerdy, but it's a lot of fun. And we do a lot of our own transcriptions from piano music, and I mean, it's about as literal as it sounds. It's just classical music on 2 guitars.
It's good. We've heard Matt play guitar many times throughout college.
Yeah, I know.
Supremely talented with his fingers on the wooden stringed instrument.
Yes,
of the guitar.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you, boys.
And then Matt, you also play in the Exits,
Yes, sir.
which is, if your Facebook is to be believed, the most thrilling party band playing hits from the 60s to the present.
Well, we are marketing geniuses. So we have to. Yes, I do play in a. Do they call them cover bands still? Cover band, tribute band,
Bar band.
Bar band, whatever you want to call it. But we have fun. We were formerly called Seeking the Seeker.
Oh, okay.
but
So those are.
Yeah, same guys.
I thought it was a whole.
Now I'm going to shout
separate
out my
thing.
band. I'm going to shout out my band now. So Eric Tamaro, Chris Chiaffi, Chris Fams, Hannah Jensen, Beju Aurora. I hope you guys are listening. And our former singer, Mark Van Buren, when we were Seeking the Seeker, when we were writing original music. And then we kind of, I guess, writing music and making it with that is very difficult, as millions of other people know. And we wanted to make money too, which you don't if you write your own music.
Nope.
So this is fun. This is like no pressure. This is like a weekend fun thing for me to do, like
That's awesome.
twice a month. But it's a good time, and I like playing other people's music. So thanks for the plug, Mike.
Very cool. Where can people find Riverside Guitar Duo and the Exits?
So you can find Riverside Guitar Duo on Facebook and on YouTube. I believe it's just youtube.com/Riverside Guitar Duo. Matt does all of the...
You guys got a custom URL.
Yeah, Matt does all of the social media and whatnot. we have like a bunch of live videos up on there. And then the exits, if you ever want to hear me sing music by the Cars, you can find our dates on our Facebook page with detailed information about times and places and things of that nature.
Very cool.
That's The Exits New Jersey on Facebook.
The Exits New Jersey, yes,
on
sir.
Facebook. So definitely check those both out.
Any
And
dates coming up?
October 21st will be at Rails Steakhouse, so that's
And that's this Thursday. So if you're listening to the day that it comes out, I mean that's this Saturday. If you're listening to it the Thursday this comes out.
yes, that's Saturday.
That's today.
shows up to Rails on Thursday now.
Yeah, it's in Towacco, New Jersey, and I don't even know where that is. But I'll find it, so I'm sure you'll be able to find it.
We'll
It
find
can't
out
be too far. It's
together.
in New Jersey, so it can't be too hard to find.
All the information's on the Facebook.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Facebook. You all have it.
It's a wonderful tool. You guys want to drink some beer?
I would love to.
I think I'm already there.
You guys are ready?
I'm starting.
This week we're drinking Narragansett Summertime Citra Ale.
It's the summertime. It is.
Somewhere.
It's October 19th, and it's summertime.
Joe, it's October 2nd.
Mike, play into the illusion that we record these the Thursday morning
day
that we
that they come
record
out.
them.
We record them at midnight and put them up at 12:10.
I like it. I like Narragansett. We were just talking about that before. It's a cheap
There's something interesting in there.
it's a cheap beer. It's that Citra, baby.
No, I know Citra hops.
Tastes like summer.
I feel like this also gives me like the Old Bay feeling that what's the Natty Boh?
National Bohemian.
Yeah. It always tastes like it's like a crab flavored beer.
Yes, I've had that. Not a fan.
This kind of gives me that taste as well in a better way. Like I like this. I didn't like Natty Boh.
Yeah, I had. Oh man, I forgot. I feel like there's another brewery that does like a, like they, I don't know, like threw crabs in their wort or something like that.
Sounds sanitary.
But I had it one time.
I don't know.
So I used to, when I had, when I was less of an adult, or when I had less of a job, I used to brew beer with a neighbor of mine, and we would always just go out and get, various 6-packs while we were brewing to just kind of like sample the fare, maybe inspire us for a future brew. And my brewing Walter White to my Jesse.
Oh, you're the Jesse?
I was the Jesse to the nth degree. I was the helper emeritus. No, the brewing genius that I used to do that with, my old former neighbor, Kyle Hordasian. I'm just shouting out everybody tonight. So this is my opportunity to do that. If you want to hear your name on a podcast, this is the day.
Let me know.
And my roommate at the present time, Mike Hamilton, we used to brew together. And we just used to, we just ran out of time, so we can't do it anymore.
Right.
But we used to just sample the fare, drink beers. But no, me and Mike were the helpers. Kyle was the evil genius behind the brews. But what's nice is Kyle's a scientist. So
like an actual scientist.
Yeah, very scientific. He's a biology man. He does biology things.
And he's a biology teacher at a high school, and now he's been diagnosed with cancer.
No, that's not the case. But
Mike, that's Walter White.
Though that we've seen the
I don't know
storyline
if you know
before. No, so what's nice is like if we ever want to brew again, our scientist leader kept detailed recipe notes of everything.
Oh, there
we
you
did.
go.
So it's nice to have those.
Very cool.
Especially when we went to like. And this guy built all his own equipment. He built his own wort chiller and all that. And he's a mad genius. But anyway, yeah.
Was it in an RV?
Yeah, I wish. It was actually like in his parents' basement where they just happen to have like this gas stove down there.
Oh, really?
It's right by a window, which was really convenient.
Yeah, wow.
And so there was a lot of board games and video games. For those who have never brewed beer, it's like an all day event.
Yeah.
If you start at 1:00, you're not getting done till like 7:30 or 8:00 after you're done cleaning everything.
Right.
So you got to have things to do, and so we would just drink a lot of beer, and play video games and eat Thai food. If you're looking to gain weight, brew beer.
Drink beer.
Drink beer, brew beer.
I'm gonna start you off on drink beer, and eventually in your diet you're gonna have to work in brewing beer. So you'll put on the pounds.
So yeah, it's a fun. No, it is a fun hobby. If anybody's looking to break into it, I was the helper. I can't teach you much, but
I bought the whole kit, and it's just been sitting in my closet for like 3 years because I never.
No, there's books you can read that will teach you how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no. So I've digressed. I drank Krabby flavored beer one time, and I was not a fan.
See, I like this though.
I
like
saw
this,
like an Old Bay, like a vodka infused with Old Bay.
Oh, you were telling me
in
about that,
the
yeah.
liquor store, and I was like, "Huh?"
I can see that
was
working
me
with
vomiting.
something.
I feel like that would be really good in a Bloody Mary.
Yeah.
You know that, and that
I
would
think
be
that's
like
what I said,
that
yeah.
would be maybe like its one and only function.
I could
would
see
be
like a
Bloody
dirty
Mary.
martini that would work with that, maybe like
Throw
a
some
little bit
crab
of
in the martini.
Yeah.
hot and dirty with that.
I mean, I've been to places that like.
Bloody Mary just like crab on
I just want to throw crab into alcoholic drinks.
Hey, you know you can make a Bloody Mary with anything nowadays. I've been to a bar where they actually like salt the rim with Old Bay.
of a Bloody Mary.
Yeah, of a Bloody Mary.
Okay.
I mean, I guess it fits.
Anything that's kind of like spicy or
anything
like
that's like spicy or
salty.
savory.
I had a
salty.
Bloody Mary at one of the Guy Fieri like burger bars that had like half of the Bloody Mary was just the stuff that was on like kebab skewers that were in it, just like full strips of bacon, peppers, like I don't even know half the other stuff that was on there. It was a meal inside of a Bloody Mary drink that you were having.
Did it take you to Flavortown?
It was pretty good, and then I got sick and stayed in the Houston airport for like 12 hours overnight.
That's Flavor Town.
That's Flavor Town.
But let's get into Mother.
Oh,
Mother!
wait. Real quick, before we get into Mother, I actually remembered the name. It was a Flying Dog beer.
Okay.
It was Flying Dog.
Is
And
that
it
the
was
one that's the New
Old
Jersey?
Bay. I think, is Flying Dog from New Jersey? I know
There's a
Flying
bunch-
Fish is...
Flying
There's a
Fishes.
bunch that I always confuse, and one of them's from New Jersey.
It was
Flying
called...
Fish is
Oh,
from
okay. It was called Dead Rise by Flying Dog. And it probably had Old Bay in it, and it was... I don't know. I just... Some, different strokes for different folks.
Flying Dog, it's the one that has like the Hunter S. Thompson font, right? Or is that Flying Fish?
No, that's Flying Dog, I think.
Feing Dog, yeah.
They have
I
like
don't know.
the fear,
Flying
they have like
Fish
the
has-
fear and
yeah,
loathing
yeah.
font,
Flying
right?
Fish has
So-
like the little bone fish, the little
Yeah.
bony
Yeah, yeah.
guy.
Little bonefish.
And then there's also Dogfish head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. All right, Mother.
Yeah, now I'm confused.
Mother.
No, I
confuse all the
I
time.
thought I had them all down, but yeah. Mike, you want to read me that IMDb description?
If I have to.
We just did, after 100 episodes, we discovered that nobody at the IMDb office is writing these descriptions.
Nobody at the-
These are users submitting. Mike and I were just making fun of the IMDb
There's nobody in the
headquarters.
IMDb building. That's. But IMDb says that Mother is a couple's relationship is tested when uninvited guests arrive at their home, disrupting their tranquil existence.
And so much more.
You're not wrong,
Yeah.
but I feel like there's more going on here.
But I'm just going to dip into the lightest of notes to get us started off on, just because there's so much to unpack here. But yeah, Mother was directed by Darren Aronofsky. Darren Aronofsky has directed Pi, Requiem for a Dream, The Fountain, The Wrestler, Black Swan, and Noah.
I forgot. He did that.
He's on a Bible kick. He's like, he found...
Don't spoil it yet.
Mother was selected to compete for the Golden Lion at the 74th Venice International Film Festival. Yeah. I mean, I could go into the cast. That would probably be helpful. I wrote just a bunch of other stuff.
J-Law.
Yeah, no, we got... I mean, the gist is that Jennifer Lawrence, Javier Bardem, Ed Harris, Michelle Pfeiffer, I feel like those are all like the big names. I mean, Kristen Wiig's in
The Gleason
there.
brothers.
Both the Gleason brothers. But yeah, before we get into like talking about this film, I'd love to talk. I'm kind of more fascinated about like the wide release of this film than like the actual film itself. I commend Paramount Pictures for taking a chance and on releasing something this like extreme or weird to like such a wide audience. But I have to wonder, like, did they not think this was gonna be like kind of a flop? Like, there was another thing. This made like $7.5 million its opening weekend at like 3,000, 4,000 theaters, which is terrible.
Yeah, how much was spent on this though? Because it's one location.
Budget.
Although I mean, it's probably a pretty big
one location and a whole lot of extras.
Budget's $30 million. So, currently it's made $34.8 million. So
they made their money.
Yeah.
Would they have made that money if they just released it in a bunch of like limited theaters and then put it on Netflix or Hulu or whatever?
I don't want to know what their advertising cost was. Like to make like a specialty.
It's also true. Would they have made more money if they didn't advertise it like that?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there's something to say. Okay, I mean, it's a little odd that they had such a wide release for this movie, but there is something to say about really believing in something. And, appreciating, the art of a certain film or, whatever it is that you're trying to market to a wide audience. But it is a little mind-boggling as to who they thought was going to actually like come out in droves to see this movie.
If you think about like Black Swan was like a huge movie the year it came out, obviously, for Natalie Portman winning Best Actress for that. And then this is like you've got J-Law in this. Like Jennifer Lawrence is a huge pull for most movies that she's in. She doesn't really do a lot of movies that don't really pull. I think this was the worst box office performance of any Jennifer Lawrence movie she's done.
I would imagine. What was the movie that she did? It was like one of, I don't know, maybe it came out in 2010 or something like that. I just remember it was in like a very rural
Winter's Bone.
But
that was nominated for Best Picture.
That was a big release though, I guess.
I don't know if it was big, but it got nominated for stuff, so I think that they keep it in theaters longer.
It was like
it has more time to make its money back.
It was like the Sundance film that competed for Best Picture or whatever. Yeah.
Although I do have a hard time imagining that had a better opening, unless they put this out in like stages. Like maybe it wasn't in 3,000 right away.
Oh no, it was.
It was?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was everywhere the first day.
What opened alongside? Do we know what opened alongside Mother that weekend?
Was it It?
I think it was going against It either its second or third week. Let me.
I want to say like maybe It and I think Kingsman came out the week after.
Kingsman was the same. Mother was before Kingsman and Lego Ninjago.
Mm-hmm.
So either a week or two before that.
Sorry, let me. Yeah. So Mother opened on the weekend of September 15th to 17th, 2017.
So it was the week after It.
Yes, the week after It. Yeah, I think this is, it was It on its second week, and It grossed 60 mil.
In its second week?
In its second week.
Jeez.
And it was at number 1. And then number 2 was American Assassin with 14 million. And then number 3 was Mother with 6 million.
So that kind of makes sense. I mean, it was like the first like big movie after like a really slow like August and late July really.
Since
made 123 million its opening weekend.
Yeah, I mean, and since it was actually announced that they were gonna, do a new It movie. Yeah, do It. There's been hype for that movie for months. And for people that didn't even know it was a book, there was a lot of hype. Because
there's also just nothing else that really like big has come out around It. Like Big is really the only sort of, I mean, horror movies generally tend to do well on making their money back, and then like nothing else really came out around that time. Like it's also like It just beat out Kingsman. Kingsman's opening weekend second weekend was beaten by It in its like third or fourth weekend.
Right, yeah. I don't know. There was also like this whole big thing that we were just talking about. What did you say before? Like how they marketed it?
Yeah, no, I was very
Do the thing.
okay, so I went into this movie. My sister Jeanette saw the movie about a week before I did. Or maybe not even a week, just a few days before I did. And, she told me she really, she liked it, and told me that there was like all this symbolism and stuff like that. And I just remember seeing the trailer and being like, so it's not a horror movie, because like the way that it was marketed, it was like spooky house, and all these people are showing up, and it's be so spooky. And why are all these people here? What's gonna happen? And I just didn't want to go in with any kind of background on it, or I wanted to be surprised. And boy, was I surprised.
Yeah. It was just a weird experience. I think you guys can attest to this, but I think I was like a pretty big like Darren Aronofsky like fanboy in college. I still have like that theatrical like 27 by 14 27 by 41 or I guess like inch poster. Like I still have it in like my closet right now, but we used to hang it in like 35G.
Your closeted Darren Aronofsky fan.
Yeah. But for as long as
After Noah, you're like, I'm going to put this in the closet.
But for as long as I liked him, what's it called? Did you watch like the Red Letter Media review of this?
No.
I did watch it. Yeah. I did watch half of the bag.
Yeah. And,
I did.
They were like, what's it called? For as long as I've been a fanboy of him, I've never heard him talk. Then I watched like they were playing like the sound bites of him talking, and he like from his press junket, and he just sounds like a Brooklyn cab driver.
Yeah,
and they played some clip where it was like, yeah, I think it's gonna be like this kind of movie that's like also this other kind of movie, but then when you're least expecting it, it's like another movie. And like I was just like, oh no, that's what he sounds like, because it does sound like this like foreign distinguished kind of like director or something.
Yeah.
Like Aronofsky, I just never really, it was just always a name to me. Yeah,
I've always had a ton of respect for his movies.
Yeah, I love it.
I saw Requiem for a Dream when I was like maybe 14 or 15 years old, and it like scared the shit out of me. This is before I knew what heroin did to people, and just like the music in the movie gave me nightmares and everything about it, and so I watched it like 15 more times. And The Wrestler, I loved The Wrestler. I might like The Wrestler more than any other movie he's made.
I think after this I do.
I don't know, man. He just kind of like, he just nailed it with The Wrestler. I don't know. And I haven't seen that movie in a really long time, but I just remember that movie leaving like a
I remember being
mark
disappointed
on
that
me.
didn't win that year.
Yeah, and Mickey Rourke Mickey Rourke has like such a bad like reputation among like people who maybe didn't see this movie, because I think he's just kind of like this big goon, but
I think they give it to Sean Penn instead, because like
for Milk.
For Milk, and Sean Penn's like, I don't know why I'm up here, but like I think the Academy or something saw that he was like on stage at the what's it called the night before, the Spirit Awards, and he's like, I can't fucking believe this, and like he was just dropping the F-bomb and like all over the place.
But give credit where it's due. The man nailed that role, and just did such really a good job. So I mean, I came into Mother with just expectations of, kind of getting shaken up again from another just like really bone chilling, just knock you off your seat Aronofsky film, and I just have a lot of really mixed feelings about it.
I think it's the most
like
mixed feeling kind of movie out there.
The way like I view this movie, it's like as if someone like told Aronofsky to make a pizza. Like, Darren, here, make a pizza, but you're gonna use like jelly and olives, and here, use this cottage cheese for something. Like, it was just all these parts that like sound maybe very creative put together, and would make like this cool mishmash kind of cross flavor, cross genre. I don't know, it just didn't really work for me.
Anthony Lane of The New Yorker wrote, if this is like a snippet of his review of Mother, it said, if you gave an extremely bright 15-year-old a bag of unfamiliar herbs to smoke and $40 million to play with, Mother would be the result. And it does. It seems like somebody who's just learning how like metaphors and allegories work.
Yeah.
Like honestly, like go into like a middle school or high school and be like,
read The Cave.
Right. Yeah. Or just like I feel like this, I don't know if they want to show this film, but it's like a very simple film where it's just kind of like, this is how like a metaphor works, or this is how like I don't even know if I would say, I don't know.
I don't know if they're good metaphors.
They're not even good. It's not even a good example. It's just it's such a like a rudimentary or just elementary
it's a textbook
level
example.
It almost feels like, you know, he started writing this movie, or did he write this movie too? I don't know. I don't want to get my facts incorrect here. You guys are the film guys.
I
I'm
didn't
just
even
kind of the guest.
write this down, but I was listening to some critic talk about this on like a podcast or something, and before the night that all the critics went to go see a screening of this, Darren Aronofsky like sent them all an email, and he's like, "Hey everyone, just so you know, I wrote this movie in like 5 days." So like, and it just seems like Jake Paul being like, "Hey man, I wrote this rap in 1 day, so like it can't be that bad." Like it just like
that's what I want to get at. It's almost like if you were hard pressed for time to like get an essay in for like a class or something like that, and you just like went on and we're just like, okay, I didn't expect this to happen in my own writing, but I'll just kind of go with it. And, and let's see where it goes, and maybe I'll shock everybody with what they discover at the end.
I was trying to think of like a really good meme to make, and it was like when like your homework or like movie pitch is due like the night before, and the only thing in your like hotel to inspire you is like the Bible and like your like dresser drawer, like the movie pitch is due tomorrow, and then like just put 2 pictures of like Noah and Mother.
Yeah, should I don't know. Do we speak on that stuff now? Is it time?
I think it's,
or are we gonna hold off a little bit?
I'm gonna spoil it for you guys now. Yeah, I think at this point we're just gonna have to talk about. It's such a prominent part of this movie. I think I'm just gonna throw a spoiler alert before I went to go see the movie, unless you object.
I don't know what you're going to talk about.
We're about to go into.
I don't think there really are spoilers because I don't think there's really a plot to this movie.
Well,
no, but maybe I don't know.
And I think anything you're going to spoil, I think has been said in press junkets before, so I think it's fair game.
Okay.
But the night before this movie came out, I guess the AV Club released a review of Mother the 13th that was titled. This is just what it says on Facebook. This is the title of the review. It says, "God is a gaslighting husband in Darren Aronofsky's brilliantly deranged Mother." And the film's release date was the 15th. And I saw that and I was like, scrolling down my feed, I was like, fuck you, AV Club. Like, you kind of like ruined that for me. Like,
no, like Jennifer Lawrence has done like press junkets where she's been like, it's like a metaphor for like the Bible and stuff, like on like Jimmy Fallon or whatever.
Well, I didn't see
so I don't think that's a spoiler.
I really wish I could have like avoided those things.
Okay, so this movie is just like a big metaphor for the most basic stories that everybody knows, even if you're not.
I honestly wish it was that simple, though. I wish it was just like the whole thing's the Bible.
It's not as cut and dry. See, for me, there came a point in the movie, and like there was this scene that I saw, and that's like where it kind of triggered. This is what the big metaphor is. They're telling the story of the Old Testament in the beginning of the big creation story and all that. And then from there, I kind of knew where it was going to go, and there was nothing left up to my imagination, because then it just played out like I was reading a children's version of the Bible, dumbed down, like in my face. I don't know.
Yeah. And let's address this by acts. So in the first what's it called? So we have the surface level plot of Javier Bardem is this poet who has lost everything in a fire. That's what we know about him. And him and his newlywed wife, Jennifer Lawrence, are restoring a house that they live in while he writes a new novel. So that's just baseline.
And he has like writer's block. He has writer's block, and it's like, everything that you would expect it to be at that point. Like, he's struggling to write, he has no confidence to write, he has no inspiration to write, and he's hoping that the house will and just being in this beautiful space will inspire him to get his creative mojo flowing again.
Okay, interesting premise. I'm intrigued. Like, there's a lot of weird things happening, but I have faith that Darren Aronofsky is going to come through at the end and be like, this happened because of this. We'll get to that. Anyway, obviously, I mean, we see in the trailer that Ed Harris shows up. He thought it was a bed and breakfast.
He says he's a doctor. He's this good doctor, and because he's a doctor, Javier Bardem's character wants to help him. He helps so many people. Why should not we help him?
So
let's take a quick pause here just to talk about Ed Harris's character, and I also want to talk about. Did you guys view this movie as a comedy at all? Like, did you guys laugh watching this movie at all? Because I've read a lot of reviews.
Not that I can remember.
I've read a lot of reviews that have been like, "Is Mother also a comedy?"
No, I
and
did
then
not
in my
laugh.
theater, I went to see it with my girlfriend Rowan, and then both of my sisters, and my brother Johnny, and we all laughed pretty hard at all of Ed Harris's lines in this movie. And I think there is an argument to be made about this movie being part comedy, and then just completely throwing the comedy out the window and going like, because when all the ridiculous stuff is happening, it is kind of funny because you have this like Jennifer Lawrence is living in this tranquil home. She's trying to build this perfect environment for her husband to write in. She's trying to rebuild his childhood home that he has all these memories in, and then all these people keep coming in, and like to a ridiculous degree, they're ignoring all of her pleas to like stop. And Ed Harris is like smoking in the house, and he's like, "Oh, do you guys not like smoking in here?"
Yeah,
Like,
it is actually kind of funny.
Now that I think about it, I would say
there was one part where like Javier Bardem and Ed Harris like are going outside, and like Jennifer Lawrence is like kind of like surprised that they're going outside, and Harris is just like, "We're going on a hike," and like just proclaims that he's so like happy and just like so oblivious to like the kind of destruction that he's causing to like their relationship and their life at this time, and that there is kind of a humor to that.
I think the more comedic element is that
I don't think it's intentionally humorous, but I think
But the accidental comedic element for me is that Jennifer Lawrence is kind of like watching all of this stuff that's out of her control. Like at some point I just let go of my sympathy because like it plays out, like I told this to my girlfriend like right after we saw it plays out like Javier Bardem is like the freshman in high school who's having a big party because his parents left, and Jennifer Lawrence is like the older like senior like nerdy sister
playing
who's like,
everybody.
No, like please don't go in my mom and dad's room, like or like hey stop drinking, like, and that is literally like it plays out like a high school movie trope for like a really long time, and like I just sometimes have to laugh at like how ridiculous the whole thing is.
I think I think if I watch it again, I'll be kind of like looking for those things now to kind of find that humorous side. But yeah, like they're going.
I don't think it's intentional.
Like,
but it's there.
The one thing that was kind of like confusing me a little bit was like they're going for these like long, like they're gone for like long periods of time. And well, that's another thing. Okay, was anybody else confused by like the timelines here? Like, was time...
It was very...
At a certain point, it became obvious to me that what we're watching happening is not actually happening.
Yeah.
It's either a dream, or it's a metaphor, or it's just
surrealism
happening.
It was kind of like things happening
dreamlike
in flashes.
editing, right.
Anyway, so...
Because stuff would also happen over really long periods of time, or then people would just come back immediately after being gone wherever.
So it seemed
that was not a long time.
Like Javier Bardem and Ed Harris are gone for long periods of time, and meanwhile, this man like comes into their house, and he's like coughing harder than like any like pack-a-day smoker I've ever met in my entire life. This guy is like sick and like frail, and like Ed Harris, he is showing his age now. Like I always thought Ed Harris was such a badass. Like he was in The Rock, and he's like such a mean son of a bitch, and everything is in. And he's in this one. He just looks like he could blow away like any second. Like they go for like these long walks, and he comes back, and he's like hocking up his entire lung, like. And I was just like, well, why are they doing this? Like, what is the point of all this? And then that's where things started to kind of make sense for me at about this point in the movie.
Okay, so I have questions of stuff. I haven't done so much research. I'm just trying to keep like my own opinion of what I thought happened. Why is he sick? Like, why is he throwing up? Why is he coughing? What does that mean?
I'm still a little
in the movie.
That.
Okay,
all right. So the movie starts out with this sort of realistic story, or they're trying to present it as realistic.
Right.
Then it quickly devolves into
floats away.
Surrealism, metaphor, however you want to look at it at that point. In the realistic storyline that we start out with, it does get eventually revealed that he is a super fan of this author, the poet, Javier Bardem, and then he is sick, and basically his dying wish is to meet him. So that's why he's there.
Yes. That's there's so many lies in this, though. That's something that they tell
He is a doctor, and he is a fan of that guy.
That's so they're telling Jennifer Lawrence the truth?
The lie that he tells is that he thought it was a bed and breakfast, and that the people in the town sent him to the wrong place. Yeah. He knew exactly that they lived there, and he went there with the purpose of meeting him because he's about to die.
on board, and he's also God. Did God bring this man to him? Like, see,
I'm just talking about the storylines. I don't know about the
Or
metaphor
did he
part.
kind of like create him?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what that's a little bit blurred for me.
His wife, okay, because this is like the ending changes everything. Like the first act is wonderful if you are just completely oblivious to everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, in a bubble, it's great. But like, you know, he's covering like his rib or whatever when he's like vomiting, and that's Javier Bardem. And all of a sudden, the next scene we have Eve basically, and like it's just, so he's not actually looking for a bed and breakfast because nothing exists outside of this house. That's why Jennifer Lawrence isn't like allowed to leave. Like none of these people actually exist, you know? Like, so this woman isn't coming because like of her sick husband and because he called her and was like, oh, I'm at this house. She's another invention of Javier Bardem that he's made, you know?
Right.
And then all of a sudden they're being sexual, and then two sons show up kind of, and they're fighting. Like, you know, it's all just fucking, and again, the sickness, I honestly think like all those things, like he's sick, he's a doctor, I think this is just gaslighting. I think this is just, I need to keep Jennifer Lawrence as naive as possible so she can continue to be my muse for like my writing, kind of. I think he's trying to tell her whatever the fuck story she wants to hear, kind of like, to kind of like sell her on like what's happening, you know? And like that's where like I'm just like, to what
do you view it as he's actually God, like in the real storyline, or just because I just think he's God in the metaphor? I think there is a real storyline, but then it just goes into surrealism.
I don't think so.
I think this is just purely a metaphor. Nothing in this is a real world. I think the framing of the house on the hill, and there's like just woods all around it, I think that's intentional because it's just our Earth and it's in like space basically, you know? So like that's why Jennifer Lawrence never takes a fucking step like outside. She just wakes up one day and she just has this memory that she's a newlywed, you know? And there's this guy who's not letting her leave the house. She never takes a step into the grass or like outside of the house because like that's our Earth. She can't like step off of it, kind of. The entire thing is like this metaphor, and I just don't completely understand. Like that's why the first act is like really
well, I get
great.
that, but the metaphors are saying like here's this real world scenario to help you understand a bigger concept. So there is a real world scenario happening. Right. You saying you think he's God in the real world scenario? Because I think he's still just a poet, and that's supposed to help us understand the story of God and the story of the Bible. In the real world scenario.
You know what? And I think that's I don't know if this is like a good thing or a bad thing that we can't figure this out. I don't know. Like sometimes
there's a whole bunch of other interpretations. Like I understood some of the Bible stuff, but I was also so tuned into some of the other stuff that I was noticing that I was picking up on other stuff. Like there's a whole interpretation about, I mean, the whole reason I think it's called Mother, and Darren Aronofsky has spoken thus far in interviews about it being about Mother Earth, and it's really a whole sort of parable about the way we treat the earth, and that's why, like, you know, there's these uninvited guests in her home.
Coded in
that's us in biblical stuff. The biblical stuff is obvious because there's also like they go into like some of like the plague stuff. Like, I mean, it's also intertwined with like Cain kills Abel, but then it's like the firstborn son being killed. There's blood on all the doors when there's the murder. There's the frog that shows up, and then they kind of give up on that metaphor. That's when I started to get really confused because that's when I really picked up on the Bible stuff, and I'm like, okay, you're doing all the plagues now, and then we don't really, we get the bug at one point, and then we don't really finish on all the plagues. And I was like, okay, well, where were we going with that?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's
also
some
there's a feminism narrative I think to be had there about like how Jennifer Lawrence doesn't really get a say in anything, and the gaslighting thing, like you're saying, and kind of just like things happen to her and she doesn't really get any agency in this movie, which I think is intentional, very much.
Yeah, you know, there's scenes where just like they could have just like called this, you know, marketed this movie as watch a young newlywed get disrespected for 2 hours. Throughout the entire movie, she's like disregarded, and her opinion is like secondary to like being a good host to these other really uninvited guests that keep showing up. And it does get very, very chaotic at parts.
Well, they go through like every element of like the female experience from like the negative aspect of like there's actual rape in this movie, like the one point when everyone's like punching her and then the people are like ripping her like shirt open and
she
like
gets
grabbing
the
at
shit
her,
kicked out of her.
and then you
Was
have
that, like,
you have
rape,
gaslight, you have like
though? Or is that just like abuse?
it's just, I mean, it's sexual assault of some kind,
Yeah,
I would
that's true.
say.
Yeah, uh-huh.
And then they have like gaslighting in this, obviously, from that stuff. And then like you just have like some of like the little stuff that goes on, where like the one scene where she's unsure about maybe whether she wants to have kids or not, and then Michelle Pfeiffer said, I forget exactly how that scene plays out, but it's kind of similar to like, oh, you don't want to have kids, like you don't want to fulfill your purpose as like a woman, like that kind of thing that the girls have to deal with.
Can I just speak on Michelle Pfeiffer's character for a second? I
loves panties.
thought
She what?
She loves panties.
Yeah.
She's like, let me tell you about panties.
Yeah, I actually, if I'm gonna give out like a gold star for acting performances in this movie, I'm giving it to Michelle Pfeiffer.
Definitely.
She made me so fucking uncomfortable while I was watching this movie. It was like everything that you don't want in a house guest. Like, you know, you come home and you find them like in your bedroom, like just going through your stuff, or like you go into your kitchen and there's just like a huge mess.
She makes
everywhere.
drinks for you, but then leaves the mess.
Yeah, like for you to clean up. Like,
and then
there's
she
a scene,
comments
like,
on
she
your
makes-
relationship.
Yeah, like she makes like she inserts herself into every part of Jennifer Lawrence's character's life. Like inserts like
Right.
in such a rude way, but the acting performance, like she was just like this devious like bitch, and
It made me miss seeing Michelle Pfeiffer, because she used to be so big in like the late 90s.
Oh, I know, and she straight up killed it in this movie. Like that was the one thing. Like people keep asking me, like, what did you think of that movie? What did you think? And my first thing to say is like, you know, before I air my grievances on this movie, let me just say that I did really enjoy all of the acting performances. I thought Michelle Pfeiffer was fantastic. I thought Javier Bardem was great. I thought that Ed Harris, like I'm kind of an Ed Harris fanboy, but I thought he was as goofy he could be. I thought that he was pretty damn good in this movie.
Right.
And Jennifer Lawrence, I think, was not really given a whole lot of freedom to do a whole lot, because she had to kind of play like this victim, aloof kind of, like just kind of like oblivious to what's going on around her, and just out of there's not really much that you can do except just, if you're acting in that role, except just kind of, you know, be a little frightened and confused the entire time. And that's really the vibe that she just gives off, like just not understanding what's going on, and it shows the entire movie. And look, I mean, that's not so much. Now, I'm not gonna pretend like I'm a big fan of her other. I mean, you know, I've seen other movies that she's in. I could take her or leave her, to be honest.
Right.
But I don't know. Maybe I just think in this instance she wasn't given a fair crack at a whole lot of creativity with her role, because it was just like this constant one scene after another of just being the same person. I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little bit too general.
No, I think we were talking about it before the microphones turned on, but no, she definitely has. I mean, we were kind of joking about it. Like she has like one face, and it's just bewildered. And I think like this sort of one-note performance is definitely intentional. There is a scene at the end where she is being assaulted, and I wish like she got as crazy as the film is. Like it, like I was like really like, man, if she like fucking like blew like the ceiling off this house with just kind of being like, fucking stop, and just like kind of like go not being angry at these people, but just totally like breaking away. Like,
Yeah,
you
no,
know, like,
she never
snapping
really
in a way that
she never really broke.
Yes.
And, I mean, and anybody else, if this was a real scenario, anybody else would be like, you know, firing a gun into the ceiling, or like, you know, setting something on fire. I don't know. But she just kind of was just the whole time just like, why are you doing this to me?
Get down from there.
Yeah, and like there's
What are
like
you doing
there's
in
like
my
people
house?
there's like people breaking all of her shit, and like just as disrespectful as you can be. That's how like everybody was treating her, and she never. Well, I guess she tried to put her foot down and like go to her husband, and her husband was just like, you know.
Oh, she tried to kick Ed Harris and Michelle Pfeiffer out, and then was denied while trying to kick them out.
Yeah.
Javier Bardem is like great at being like oblivious of like how much of an egotistical asshole he is. Like I feel like that's like a really great performance of kind of like, I don't know, like he doesn't know like how much of like an asshole he's kind of being. Like he's kind of like blind to it. Like even when they're like, she's giving him like this silent treatment, she gives birth to him or whatever, and he's really trying to take the baby out there, and she's like, fucking no, like you saw what they've been doing, and she knows exactly what's gonna happen. He's like, but I want to see him. You know, like he's just like, he's just like so just like a white trash.
It's like there's one point in the movie where she like kind of like freaks out on him a little bit, and you know, kind of blurts out that he is not providing husbandly duties. In so many ways, he like won't have sex with her. So
dissolved
magically that night,
dissolved to white, and then cut to Jennifer Lawrence feeling her
like
titty, being like, I think I'm pregnant.
Yeah, like laying in bed, like
that's when it was really like, okay, everything we're watching is
Nothing's
not actually
real.
happening.
Yeah,
It's
no,
surrealism.
no. And that was like the one thing, and even like for him, like just the act of boning his wife was just like to show off the fruits of his seed to other people, like to his guests, like they want to see the baby, like you know, there's like this, you know, this metaphor of like the Madonna and the babe, like sitting down, and he just keeps trying to like take the baby away so he could show it off to like this crowd of destructive and disrespectful strangers. But at no point in the film are Jennifer Lawrence's feelings or anything that she asks taken into consideration. And it's just Javier Bardem is just like so like nice about it that as an audience member, like I don't think I really even got mad at him for any of it. Yeah. I was just kind of like, oh, this guy's just, you know, he's just trying to entertain his guests. He's just that guy that
I can't remember if it's before or after, but I mean, there's to jump into some of the like actual spoiler territory for the scenes that do happen in this movie, not just the metaphors, but she gives birth to the child, and they keep bringing like all these gifts for the child, and then eventually they won't bring gifts, and he wants to show them the kid, and while she like falls asleep because she's been staying watch over this kid the entire time, he steals the kid and goes out and hands it to the people, and they just kind of like crowd surf the baby.
This baby.
I do love this fucking scene because I think this is when the movie is getting like super intense at this point.
Oh, this was a dark scene. I mean, but you know what? At the same time,
which is what I wanted from this movie. I wanted an experience of some sort of like darkness because I came into it expecting a horror movie.
I thought it was,
and even if it's not scary, it does get into that sort of gore and like just cringy like experience.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I will say about the scene with the baby, if you didn't see that coming, do we dive into this now? Should we just get it out of the way? Okay, so the baby is being passed around and it's crying, and Jennifer Lawrence is like trying to fight through the crowd to get this baby, and then like all of a sudden like it kind of goes a little silent, and you hear like this little pop, and you just see the baby's head just kind of like fly back, and there's this scene in the movie where the baby gets like its neck broken and then eaten by the
torn
crowd
apart
of people.
and eaten.
Slaughtered, and this happens all in about 10 seconds. I don't know. She fights through the crowd, and there's just like flesh like on this cutting board, and like people just have like pieces of this baby in their hands. Like
what I do think is great here is that even if he's not the most adept screenwriter in this movie, he's an adept fucking filmmaker just because of the experiences that we get in this movie. And I think I love the way that like we kind of just they picked the perfect house for this movie. How it's so circular, so we can just kind of keep walking around and around, and by the time we get to the next room, it's a new scene happening. So like the shit happens where like the baby's neck gets cracked, and then by the time she's like able to catch up to what's going on, they've already got like these shrines with like candles set up, and people are like just eating parts of like the flesh in that room. Like it's just like a whole new scene that's been set up by the time it took her to walk down the stairs and get there to what's going on.
Yeah, no.
I think everything that happens, especially when shit like really starts to get crazy before that, when all of the fans show up after he puts out the book, and and they're all like showing up at the house with like all the lights in the field, and then they're like breaking through the room, and the SWAT team is in there, and she's getting like, grenade fragments thrown everywhere
Kristen
and
Wiig
bullets.
gets blown away.
Kristen Wiig
Just
gets
like,
blown
like
away.
a rag doll.
I
Just
hate
gets,
that
like,
role.
I don't like her for that role, but I do love that. I think the middle of the movie is where I was the most into it. Even if I didn't like the story at that point, I was into the filmmaking at that point where I was like, this is a fucking experience. I wish I cared about the story. I wish it wasn't a metaphor.
If you didn't love the story, but you're a fan of like cinematography and things like that, you'll find bright spots. You'll find a lot of bright spots in this movie. I thought the lighting was really cool, and the mood that it set, and everything about the way this movie was shot.
And just think about the editing that has to go into this, because it's just every time they go into a new room, it's a new scene, but it has to feel like it's happening all at the same time because they're just walking around this house.
Yes.
And like nothing ever feels like, oh, that's not right. Like, that it feels like how it's supposed to happen in the movie, even if it's not supposed to happen in the actual story. We understand that it's surrealist, but it makes sense for our eyes as we're watching it. Nothing feels out of place that way.
I wasn't crazy about like when they were really going around, like there was all like the different factions at war and everything. Something about that pacing, and also something about that lighting. I think Red Letter Media makes fun of it. It looks kind of like the pacing and lighting for like the Turn Down for What music video, where like people are breaking through the walls or whatever.
Yeah, I do remember them.
But that like I laughed at that because I've never seen that music video, honestly. But like it had very like indie kind of like music video vibes to it.
I was
like,
just
it was just kind of like, we have to deal with such a microcosm because we have such limited space of like in a house that like an entire army is like three army guy like extras, and like that's kind of like what a music video is like an army's represented by like three guys, because that's kind of like all they had like the budget for. It kind of just reminded me of like a music video. It's kind of a little overwhelmed, like especially like the people getting their heads blown off or whatever. Like it was cool, and it was definitely some great special effects, but like sometimes I feel like Aronofsky couldn't pick and choose like what to show and what not to show, and to be like a little more subtle. I mean, this is not a subtle film by any means. I feel like I had a headache because I was hit over the head so much with like so much shit. But just like the baby dying, I don't know, I just wasn't into that scene because it just felt extreme for extreme's sake. Honestly, like watching a baby's neck break should be like very haunting and like, whoa, like, oh my gosh, I'm really taken aback by this. But I felt a lot more anxious and uneasy just in the first scene, in the first act. It's just like this, like by the time we got here, I was just kind of like, yeah, I guess. Like it was just kind of like, am I that like immune to like weird violence in movies that like that like a baby dying doesn't like make me uneasy?
I could not agree with you more.
Yeah.
And it goes back to just like the second that baby is born, like it's gonna happen. You know that something's gonna happen to the baby. Like,
or even
I didn't guess that like this baby's gonna get its neck snapped and then devoured by the masses of people that were there. But you knew something bad was gonna happen to this baby.
Right.
And I was not fazed by that scene one bit. I was not surprised. The second that baby was gone, I knew it was going to die. I knew that in some kind of weird
it's just
phenomenon way that baby was dead.
When you just have such like strong performances and like such like strong like basically performances is all this kind of film has, and then it's completely devoid of that by the end. So by the end you're just like, it's all a metaphor, so nothing matters. That's not a real baby.
Like
nothing.
It's like the second level of like the whole like dream trope of like we watch this entire movie and then at the end they wake up and it's a dream. Except by the second act we know that it's a metaphor, and it matters even less because it's not even happening in someone's dream. It's just
so I kind of like check out like even when they're having like, I didn't even really understand why that like whole funeral scene was in there, like for the Cain or Abel, I guess, whichever one
died.
What is
it? Cain kills Abel.
Cain kills Abel.
Because Cain does have like a mark on his head, right? Yeah, and then Abel's the one who dies. But yeah, I was like, why? What is the point? I guess like maybe it's to like the first wave of like uneasiness or like the sink's gonna break or like I don't know. It
Yeah,
was just I was kind of like, why is this scene in here? I'm kind of all over the place right now, but yeah. Yeah. Also, I mean, this is backtracking a little bit to like all the different interpretations. Like, I would have loved this movie more. There was one article I kept seeing by the Los Angeles Times. They wrote this commentary piece called, the worst thing about Darren Aronofsky's mother is that we've demanded him to explain himself, because he does. Like in that interview that I was talking about before, where he's like the awful New York Brooklyn accent. Like, he dismisses, like, all, like, things. He's like, no, movie's not about that. It's about Mother Earth and the Bible. And, like, that's it. Like, like, I would love to believe the whole feminist and, like, all these other different, like, things. But, like, when it comes, like, right out of the horse's mouth, I'm like, dude, don't fucking say that. Like, is that, like, a symptom of, like, is that the price of, like, releasing it so wide scale that you have to, like, go on some press junket and be like, yeah, so Jennifer Lawrence, she's kind of like the Virgin Mary and Mother
Yeah,
Earth.
no, there was some symbolism that was definitely blurred.
Yeah,
like
because it's trying to do 4 different metaphors at once.
Yeah, it was just it was just trying to do too much all at once.
Because then the other thing, the part that I did kind of like about it was Javier Bardem's character just kind of portraying like ego and fame and like the process of creating, and like it's also weird. We haven't talked about the fact that like Darren Aronofsky and Jennifer Lawrence are dating in real life. Like, so after watching this movie, I wanted to be like, run, J-Law. Like, if a creative guy is telling you that this is what the creative process is like, then you should fucking run, because he wrote a movie about like basically killing her and burning her house down. Like,
yeah, right.
in order to get a book, and that's what it's like to get a book out, or to get a screenplay in Darren Aronofsky's case out. So. But I do like that in the movie itself. Like, I do like a lot of the scenes, especially that are Javier Bardem dealing with his fans and kind of addicted to that fan. Like, that's really what draws him to not being able to get rid of Ed Harris and Michelle Pfeiffer, is because they're such huge fans and they appreciate this book that like not a lot of people have heard of, that he's published and put out there, and that's why he can't turn the fans away when they want his fucking baby to like snap his neck.
It's this whole that was also those are really fucking opposites. Like Jennifer Lawrence and Darren Aronofsky. I don't know who I feel more bad for.
I did
honestly.
I did not know that they were an item.
Yeah,
this is news to me.
This whole thing definitely feels like somebody else wrote like I don't even know whether they liked it or didn't. Like, this wasn't a movie for audience. This was like this movie was solely just to fuel like Darren Aronofsky's like ego or whatever. And I feel like he does think he's like the Javier Bardem character, and he's just kind of like, yeah, like that's why like Rachel Weisz like cheated on me with Daniel Craig and we got divorced. Like, like it's just because I'm just such a tortured artist, Yeah.
And then there was a little, sorry to cut you off. There's like a little press junket thing that Darren Aronofsky did when he was just talking about like the experience of filming this, and I think he's talking about, I don't know if it's the like sexual assault or the assault scene in particular, but he says there's one scene, I guess it's before that. He's talking about where Jennifer Lawrence would be so like emotionally in overdrive because of the way that he would direct her, that like she would then, when she would deliver her line, she would like, I think she tore her diaphragm or something like that. Something that was an actual, like, she needs to go get medical attention now. And then he was like, yeah, and then we just kept filming. And then like, while like people are calling like the hospital for help, I got some really great reaction shots from her, like in pain. And I'm like, that's your fucking girlfriend there. Like, it's bad if that's an actress, but that's like the woman you love. Like, why are you behind the camera? Why are you not, oh my God, like you just tore your diaphragm. Or, I mean, I don't know if they knew at that time, but she was clearly in pain, seeking help. They were calling 911 or the hospital or whatever, but it did not look good for Aronofsky to hear that, because I think he thought that was cool. Like, yeah, I'm such an artist that like when she was in pain, we got some really cool pain scenes, rather than like, oh, I actually like hurt my girlfriend with my directing style. I made her so anxious that she tore her diaphragm when she had to deliver lines.
Like, one other like kind of like unrelated thing about this movie that I was a little disappointed in, and this is kind of like the I guess it's the musician in me coming out. I know what you're gonna say. Really, really hoping for a better soundtrack.
Dude, how baller is the soundtrack in the trailer?
In the trailer, I'm
This
like,
is
yo,
so cool.
I'm like,
They
yo,
threw the
this
whole
is
thing
like,
out. Yeah.
I was like, this is like, okay, for anybody who knows who these composers are, this is like Webern and like Berg and Bartok just like coming at you with these crazy like, I could, like psycho-esque like violins and shrieky. I was like so stoked for it because he has such a good track record for that, like sound, like the Requiem for a Dream soundtrack and the Black Swan soundtrack are so good. And I believe, I don't know if Clint Mansell did one or both of those, but I mean, like they added so much drama and so much like just angst and like.
Requiem's still a classic score.
Oh, I know. Like, and it just like it added so much. I feel like maybe in scenes where, she like walks in on Ed Harris and Michelle Pfeiffer, like, bumping uglies. Like, I feel like, it would have been cool to just have like this really kind of like dissonant, shrieky, but not like jump scary, but just kind of like in the background, just, thematic,
discordant.
just thematic, cool soundtrack music. Like he is so.
I can't remember
good
what
at
the soundtrack to this movie
it
was.
was
Was there
like-
any? Or
It was just like noise. It wasn't anything.
Yeah. Like when what's it called? They like scored it perfectly, or I guess they animated perfectly the what's it called? Like when you're writing with the whatever, like the fountain pen that he was writing with, and like everything's splattering, and that's kind of like the title text or whatever. Like in the trailer, it'd be like or whatever with the exclamation point.
It was
like,
really cool.
It was really
It was-
crazy
it
the
was-
way that they cut it with the trailer too. I was like, if anything, did I just say baller soundtrack before? This is gonna be a baller soundtrack.
Yeah, no, it was.
It's gonna be baller.
Look, I mean, for me personally, like I think that a soundtrack does a lot for a movie, or does or the absence of a soundtrack in while we're talking about Javier Bardem, like No Country for Old Men.
Right.
Like, what was there? Maybe like a measure of music in that entire movie.
Yeah.
Like that did a lot for that movie because it just fit. I think in the case of this movie, it kind of needed a little bit more, or just something to. I don't know. Maybe I was just. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it doesn't matter at all. But maybe I was just expecting it to be there, and I'm unhappy because it wasn't. Because like in Black, I'm picking out these two movies in particular because the soundtrack just did so much for it. Like Black Swan and Requiem for a Dream, the soundtrack was just perfect for the movie. And I don't know, maybe I was just expecting more of that, and that's why I'm a little bit bugged about the fact that it was just not what I thought it was going to be. Or maybe I'm overreacting, I don't know, but that did something for me, or didn't do something for me with this movie.
I read about it. They basically wrote an entire score for the movie, and then at the last minute they were like, no, let's not put it in. Let's just like have an atmospheric like sound design, which is cool in the movie. But like I could have used a little bit of it, like even if it would come and go, and it didn't have to like, I don't know. And it definitely played into the whole kind of like, we fucking tricked you with like the ad campaign kind of, where like it shows like this really cool score and they cut it like kind of like this thriller. And that's why I said off mic, I was like, if somebody went to this movie and was like, I fucking hate this movie, I was like, you have every right. Like, I feel like people, at least everyone in my movie theater looked and sounded like they got duped out of $13. They were like, the fuck, man? I went to go see a horror movie with Jennifer Lawrence, and I'm watching this, like it was
even
like,
people like reviews that I've read from people who gave it like 4.5, stars. No one else does fingers.
right.
Like 4 fingers or like 4.5 fingers. Like those people have in their review said like, I loved this movie, but I also completely sympathize with everyone who fucking hated this
I'm in
movie
the same boat.
or
Like,
didn't get this movie.
I totally understand like
good or bad, I understand
why people would love this movie. I understand why people would hate this movie, and then I understand, where people are who feel about this movie the same way I do. Like, I left the movie and I was just like trying to convince myself that I liked it. And then anytime you have to do that, that there's problems. But I'm still kind of like confused whether I like this movie or I don't. I don't know. I guess I I guess I just didn't like it that much.
It sounds like you didn't like it.
If I really
I haven't
have
heard
to
a whole
convince
lot of
myself-
positive things.
Well, no. Well, look, there are like I'll go out and say the first act of the movie I really enjoyed. But it's what comes after that, and just the fact that the whole movie was built off of this metaphor and all this symbolism that I wasn't aware of going into this. Like, I made a point to just stay away from it. I didn't read anything. I wanted to go into this as blindly as I could. Mm-hmm. And then once I kind of got what was happening, and that, like, Ed Harris represented Adam and Michelle Pfeiffer represented Eve, from that point on, I was just like, well, there's nothing more for me to look forward to in this movie. So at that point, I just started to like focus more on the performances by the actors, and I would have loved, like I just said, a better soundtrack. Or you know, I did think that the cinematography was good, but plot-wise and story-wise, there was just nothing left for me to be surprised by or excited about. Like, everything was just like, oh, I get it. Oh, this is happening now. I get this. Okay, you've just really shoved it in my face here. And look, I guess I don't know. I
think it's like
that's where my big gripe is. Where 25 minutes into the movie, I really didn't need to see any more to know what was going to happen. But there were good things to pull out of this. I mean, I've kind of already listed what they were, but that's just the way I felt walking out of the theater, and I think that's what I was debating on, whether, like, did I like this movie? Did I not? Because there were aspects that were good, but a lot of it was just like kind of meh. I don't know. That's just,
it's really easy. I mean, and it might have been for different reasons, but I feel like it was really easy to see the end to have this movie end and just be fucking angry, like livid. Like, I was typing in like a group chat that Mike and I have, and I like came home and I really had to fucking vent. I was like, I'm questioning everything I've ever liked by Darren Aronofsky. I was fucking like livid. I was just kind of like, because even at the end, it's just, it puts like, again, it's kind of like this movie that kind of makes like, I don't know. I haven't really talked to anybody who likes it like that much yet, but it's kind of like, it's kind of this movie that makes like dumb people feel smart for like understanding like metaphors. It's kind of like the whole like, you know, if you give like a smart 15-year-old like weed, like this is what he'd make kind of. But like we get it, like mankind's bad, you know, they ruin Earth, and then it literally like ends and it really has no suggestion of like how we can change. It's just kind of like, this is,
you guys are fucking up.
Yeah, it's just like, y'all dumb, and like there's just no suggestion, there's no real meaning to it. Like, at least other allegorical movies tell their own stories.
Right.
This does not.
No, this is just
it's
it
just like,
is what it is.
It's a movie that I just like, I kind of understand why people kind of like it. I can't understand why people would like full on like, this is my favorite movie of the year kind of like it, because it's a movie that doesn't work for general audiences, and it's also a movie that doesn't really work for like art house moviegoers either.
In between, yeah.
It's kind
somewhere,
of
it's like when you try to please everybody, but then in doing so, nobody's happy.
Right. It's like an art pop album that's miserable to listen to. So like the radio's not going to play it, and like people, you know, like who love this artist aren't going to play it. It's like
It's like you split the difference a little bit too much, and you alienated both audiences. You alienated the mainstream audience by not giving them the horror or thriller movie that they wanted, and you alienated the art house audience because you basically,
it's too stupid, right?
You basically dumbed everything down for them, and you basically treated them like, I don't know, children.
Right. It's too ham-fisted. It's too obvious.
I feel like there's a lot of stuff that doesn't even work. Like, even if I was not really like, I wanted to like this movie a lot, and then in the first like act of this movie, I really wasn't into it. It was the second act that I actually liked the most, which is when like you guys checked out. But I feel like there's a lot of stuff that doesn't really work for me in like the first act. Like, I think they have a really weird portrayal of what's going on with Jennifer Lawrence. Like, like I don't like the very intro to this movie. I don't like the whole like, I understand what they want to do because they want to bookend it at the end when he does everything, so they have to do it. But I thought visually that wasn't very cool compared to the rest of it. The rest of it feels so real. Like I feel like I'm actually watching all these extras burst through the house, and we're actually going around. Like I don't feel like it's edited. I feel like I'm actually walking around the house with Jennifer Lawrence, seeing all this shit, and then we have like this weird CG shit of like the house like being like restored. Beauty and the
Beast.
Like being restored again. I didn't like that interesting, and then I hate how they keep peeking back at that, like when she'll have like these. I still don't know if she was having headaches or a stomach ache or whatever.
That's
like,
right. We haven't mentioned that. We haven't mentioned that.
What's the yellow medicine?
Is that supposed to be just kind of like?
I don't know what it means in the real storyline because I think the direction or screenwriting or the performance or the marriage of all three doesn't work in those scenes because we don't know what is she feeling. She just goes. Her face gets flushed. We get a little bit of makeup there, and then she just kind of is like, "Oh, I'm uncomfortable." And we don't know, like, are you having a headache? Hold your head. Are you having a stomach? Hold your stomach. Like, what's actually going on in these scenes that she's feeling uncomfortable about?
I didn't even know.
And then what is that medicine? It looks like it's fucking like in a snake oil package of like this will cure you or whatever. Like, there's no real world comparison for that in this metaphor. Like, what yellow powder do you dissolve in like water
and just shake?
And then why does she put that in the powder that she puts on the wall? Like, I don't know what that means in the real world, and I don't know what that means in the metaphor.
The closest thing I can come to is like, if you're constipated, you put like Metamucil in your water.
Yeah.
Like was she just like backed up? Is that what this is all about? But I mean, I think going back to why I like the first act so much, I'm a big fan of like feeling. I like just kind of feeling uncomfortable when I'm watching something.
Yeah,
like
I mean, that's really my main
reason.
complaint. Is just that those scenes.
I think that's a big reason why
I think they stick out from both analysis of this film.
That's why I'm such a big fan of like The Office and of like Curb Your Enthusiasm. Mm-hmm. I love seeing because we've all been there when it's like you have to. You're with that guy who just.
Now I'm imagining this movie with the Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah, just Larry David, just like. We don't really want you to be here.
Why are you in the sink? Why are you in the sink?
I don't think you've looked at the structural integrity of this sink. No, but I'm a big fan of. I like being taken out of like that zone where it's just because everyday life is just super uncomfortable. Like I think I have like an awkward interaction with somebody at least like 4 or 5 times a week, like easy.
Yeah.
And I like seeing that, and it kind of plays. I just enjoy like kind of sitting there and being like, oh, don't say it, don't do it, and like everything that like Ed Harris and Michelle Pfeiffer did about just being horrible guests. I think I just really enjoyed that like. When will Javier Bardem like when will he see her side of things? Because this is like really, really rude and just like I don't know, childish.
Right.
It's like I don't know, it just kind of like reminds me of like my dog.
Right.
Like when I was training my puppy, it was like, it just defies. They were just like defiant children throughout it, and plays into the whole original sin, Adam and Eve. They kept going into the, they picked the forbidden fruit, and she kept telling her. Yeah, but I think that's what I liked about the first act. Because at that point, before like I got any of the symbolism, any of the metaphors, it was just turning into like these people won't leave my house.
Right.
This could get very, very, very uncomfortable and very like dangerous.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing is before I saw... You know what? Even after I read that kind of like pretty revealing like AV Club title right on my feed, I'll never fucking forgive you for that, AV Club. I wanted to find out on my own. I was like, okay, he's a gaslighting god. Maybe he has these kind of godly powers. And every time I watched the trailer, I was like, okay, maybe this is some sort of cult. They all have pictures of him or whatever. And, maybe that's like these are his first followers coming in. They love his book or whatever. And he's like this kind of godly person, And now I fucking forget where I was going with this. But it is kind of just like, I do love this first act, but I hate that later you start to figure out like, the whole thing's just like like allegories and metaphors or whatever, and you're just like, oh, none of this shit is fucking real. Like, fuck me, right? Like, I paid attention for no reason. Like, I got invested in this.
I think
for
when I started to enjoy the movie most, because I didn't really like the first act because of some of the stuff that I was picking up on, because I was like, well, if this is a real storyline, or before I realized it was a metaphor, I'm judging it as like a real storyline. So I'm like, well, the sick stuff doesn't make sense. The powder that she's putting in doesn't make sense. I really don't like the visual of her like looking at stuff in the old house, kind of like breathing in the weird like heartbeat of the house. I really didn't like any analysis of this movie. But then when stuff started to really get crazy, and when you started to realize like, oh, okay, they're not leaving because they're not actually here. None of this is actually happening. It's a surrealist parable or metaphor or allegory, whatever you want to call it, and none of it actually matters. You're just supposed to pull a feeling from it. That's when I really started to enjoy it, because then I would just focus on what am I feeling right now, like the uncomfortableness of them not leaving, or then when shit really starts to go crazy and the windows are breaking and SWAT's coming through and a grenade's going off over here and a baby's neck is getting snapped.
See, like all of that stuff just did nothing for me. Like the destruction of the house, it just, because at that point, I like you said, like it's like I know none of this is real. Like none of this is really happening, and it was almost like the beginning of the movie, that whole part that you didn't like of the restoration of this house, like spoiled that, because it almost like, okay, it's coming back. Like okay, we knew the house.
This is in media res, like whether no matter what happens, this is what's it.
Also, in like the first act of the movie, when I was still thinking that it was going to have like real consequences for these characters and it wasn't just surrealism and whatever, I really didn't like when she found like the like hidden chamber of the house, because I feel like they did a poor job of establishing that when she broke that like door open, she found what she was hidden there. Like it looked like she found a secret passage and then she didn't explore it, and then we were going to explore that later. When really all that happened is she found the gas tank in the house, but they made it presented like it was something that was hidden, like oh, like he's got like a secret place where he's like raping women or like you know murdering someone or something. And I thought we were going to find out something dark about him, and I was always waiting for that to come out, and it wasn't until the end, when I've already checked out from caring about these characters, that I'm like, oh, it was literally just like the furnace tank or whatever, and she's gonna burn the house.
That was like this whole movie for me, is that I was like, oh, this is gonna show up later, and like, no, not really. This is just random shit that I'm showing you, kind of. I don't know. It's just, yeah, it is. It's that point that when it's when it becomes painfully clear at one point that all of the characters, you know, are allegorical. I don't know. It's just like you lose. I just stopped caring at one point.
There's no gravity to it. It's just...
It's even like Kingsman. It's kind of like at least something is grounded in emotion there, and I can feel for somebody at some point. But this is just kind of like I can't relate to any angle of this because it's all just a metaphor, you know. And it's just like if you don't keep your movie grounded somehow in reality, it just floats away, and you're just like, there it goes. Like, you know, like I could never be inside that, you know. I don't know.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. But do we want to get into fingers?
Oh, yeah, I'm ready to get into fingers.
Okay.
On review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes, let's talk about this.
All right.
The film has an approval rating of 68% based on 240 reviews and an average rating of 6.6 out of 10. So it's above average. The site's critical consensus reads, "There's no denying that Mother is the thought-provoking product of a singularly ambitious artistic vision, though it may be too unwieldy for mainstream tastes." I think it's
a nice spin.
Yeah. Although Rotten Tomatoes can be pretty critical, so I mean they're trying to summarize what some critics are gaining from it, and it is above average, so you have to give it a slightly positive spin in your summary. I can probably go first if you guys aren't ready.
Please, by all means.
My reaction when I first came out of this movie, and I said this to Joe in our group chat, was that I think I equally love and hate this movie. Like there are parts of this that I'm like, I've never seen something like this in a movie before, and I'm really glad that I saw something like this in a movie before. I really enjoyed the experience of being that uncomfortable in a movie, or just seeing things that I haven't really seen in filmmaking before. but then there's parts of this that I'm just like the whole metaphor thing is just like, well, I mean, nothing matters, and I wish you would have just, like, I feel like he did what I wanted out of this movie in Black Swan already, which is why I like Black Swan so much, is that it's grounded in those characters. We care about those characters, even if there are stuff that's happening, like, it's not actually happening, you know? Like, she's not actually growing wings.
Right.
She's not actually turning into a swan. It's just about being so consumed by a performance and competition and all that you know, that's the portrayal of that, metaphorically speaking, and that worked beautifully in that movie, and that's why that movie is so critically well received. And this is like, he was just like, oh, people like the metaphors in that movie, let me just jam like a million of those in there and do a lot of surrealist stuff, because that's fun to make, and I'm sure it was, but it doesn't really come out as the final product that we really needed. And he's so capable of making like really good grounded dramatic performances, like The Wrestler, or grounding them in surrealism like Black Swan, or like Pi is like a really fucking awesome movie that I like, where like stuff's probably not actually happening in that movie, but the drama is so real that you care about it.
Right.
I haven't actually seen Requiem for a Dream, so I can't compare it to that, but
it's great.
I'm sure it's a good movie. And I haven't seen Noah, so I can't talk about his best movie of all time.
When he first became a born again Christian and he started pulling from,
supposedly
Is that like what happened?
I know, no, I don't think so, but like I really don't know.
I think he just thinks the Bible is like a rich territory to like go into that people haven't done, and he doesn't realize that the Bible's been pulled from in like all storytelling. Yeah. Supposedly there's like rock monsters in the Noah, like it turns into like an action movie at some point.
Aronofsky's gonna direct God is Real 3.
Yeah. So I really liked the second act. I really liked the uncomfortable feeling. And I do think the performances are pretty great throughout. Like, I don't even mind Jennifer Lawrence's performance, because I don't think she drops the ball at any point. I just don't think it's her best. I don't think she has any opportunities to really rise above.
Yeah. That's exactly.
Yeah.
But she's capable, and I've always liked most of her dramatic performances. So I wish she was given a little bit more, but she's fine in what she does. She's not even really the main character of this movie, because there's no characters, because it's all just a metaphor. But Javier Bardem's great. Michelle Pfeiffer, I would really like to see an acting nomination for her this year, based on what I've seen so far. There's still a lot to come out that I haven't seen, but one of my favorite performances of the year. And then Ed Harris is great, even though it's more comedically for me. I was laughing. It worked. I was laughing so much at it, because it's also pointing out like how ridiculous the stuff that's happening is if you're laughing at it. Like, even some of Michelle Pfeiffer's lines I would laugh at, where you're like, are you really saying that? Like, really?
Right,
Yeah. So I think it's pretty much because of my equal love and hate for this movie. It's an average movie. I think I'm going to bump it up a little bit, because I'm glad that it got made.
Yeah.
I think it's maybe not the wisest choice to have put it in all these theaters, but I'm glad that this movie exists. I'm glad that we can watch something like this that feels original, even aesthetically, even if not, you know, the storytelling isn't really original in this, since they're just telling the Bible over again. But I can't say that I've seen a movie like this, especially not a movie about the Bible. So I think it's original in that aspect. So I'll give it a 3 fingers. I'm glad that something like this comes out when we have like sequels and remakes and all that shit. I'll always push for someone to follow their artistic vision, even if it's maybe not a remake of the Bible. So 3 fingers for me.
Cool.
All right. Yeah, I'll go next. All right, yeah, no, so I think I've pretty much laid everything out that I wanted to say. I did really enjoy all the performances. Again, I think Jennifer Lawrence was the weakest, but then I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because she just had so many great people acting around her. Who knows what was happening behind the camera, and, you know, who knows?
Go to the hospital.
Yeah. Who knows, like, what was being... I even remember, like, reading something where Aronofsky is like, yeah, like, she just kind of, like, showed up on set, and we were just kind of, like, fucking figuring her character out when she showed up. And I was like, oh, no.
Stop putting him in interviews.
I know, yeah. He was just kind of like, yeah, it wasn't even really written, and we were just kind of fucking making it up, you know, as we went. Yeah. No, I do, just because I've covered like a lot of what I wanted to say, I do want to harp again. I feel like the last time I talked about this, I feel like we talked about it during The Witch, and I feel like we talked about it during It Comes at Night. but I am getting sick of these people are making these kind of like, this is even completely different. I mean, I feel bad that, The Witch and It Comes at Night were kind of being advertised as these completely different movies. This was like a different genre, basically. It wasn't like another form of horror as much as it was just like another genre. And I don't know, it was a little horror. I'm just like a little sad that there's like, they're making this like bigger divide between like your typical like studio horror and your modern like kind of like art house horror film. I know I've been borrowing like a lot from like Red Letter Media this episode, but they did make like a point at the end that I thought was like a really nice like bookmark of like how this whole thing was like marketed, and it was kind of like basically the whole divide. What was I saying? But they made like a whole point that the divide and how it's like conditioned people, how people are to modern horror. Like, why did it have to go for like these big kind of cheap like jump scares, like blow your fucking eardrums out, like layer like 20 like screaming tracks on top of each other every time we see like Pennywise, and like make him like as big on screen as possible and kind of like dancing and huge. Like it felt like a weird like Disney ride at sometimes, as opposed to like modern, as opposed to like horror cinema. Like, but Jay talked about how people in the theaters were like kind of like laughing at some of the scares during The Witch because it's not what they were conditioned to. It was just like quietly haunting. Like it's just like weird, like how there's and I feel like studios are playing like this big part in like that shit and like how this was all marketed and everything. And I am gonna give this a kind of low score, but I was like sad. Like when I was angry at the end of this movie, but I was like sad at everybody else in my theater. It was like, their fucking like horror movies are getting so much worse and everything. It was just like, it made me sad. I don't know. And I just hope people start figuring out how to market these movies, and because they're just gonna go, like, I feel like we are in this like renaissance of like It Follows, The Witch, It Comes at Night. Like we have all these great movies, and I wish they would stop kind of tricking people.
Learn how to rely on like word of mouth or something.
Yeah. But yeah, that was just like a whole thing. I do think this screenplay and everything was pretty awful. I didn't touch on it that much, but I said this multiple times. I feel like it was the most expensive student film of all time. Like this is like something that somebody would read aloud like after like the first few classes of like screenwriting 101, be like, okay, so God's an author, that's Darren Aronofsky in a college class. Yeah, and I'll finish it off with a funny tweet that I was reading. It said, I enjoyed all of your mother theories, but it's pretty clear that someone broke Darren Aronofsky's sink at a party once, and he's still really pissed about it. But I'm going to give Mother a finger and a half. 1.5 fingers. What about you, Maddie?
All right. So, I didn't hate this movie. I didn't love this movie. Like I said, there were things about it that I liked. As far as like the first act, I enjoyed. I thought the acting performances were good. But again, to harken back to what you said, Joe, the marketing in this movie was very deceiving. Mm-hmm. I kind of felt that the same way about like It Comes at Night.
Right.
Though I didn't dislike It Comes at Night, I was just expecting a little bit something different.
Yeah.
So that kind of maybe hurts that movie a little bit, hurts Mother a little bit for me. And then to kind of harken back to what Mike said about like, or what we've just been saying this entire night about how all of these, metaphors and allegory, everything was just like so shoved in our face.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of wish Aronofsky, if this is the movie that he really wanted to make, would have maybe watched like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou a couple times before this, just to kind of understand like the subtlety of how that type of thing works.
Right, yeah.
And like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, though it's coded in all of this metaphor, still kind of had like its own thing kind of going for it.
Right, yeah.
It was unique in a certain way where this movie wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Again, acting performances by the 3, I guess, major supporting cast members were very good. I, too, would like to see Michelle Pfeiffer get some well-deserved props for her acting chops in this movie. I am going to give this movie 2.5 fingers. I'm splitting the difference.
Right down the
because-
middle.
Yeah, because I don't want to hurt Aronofsky too bad.
Right.
And okay, maybe it would have been 2 fingers had Michelle Pfeiffer not done such a good job in my eyes. Darren, if you're listening, listen to this. Darren, somebody tell Darren Aronofsky to listen to this.
Hey, Darren, get over here.
You need to like go kiss Michelle Pfeiffer's ass for just doing such a great job in this. So, okay, final thought, 2.5 fingers from me.
So that'll come to 2.3 repeating, which will round down to 2 fingers. So below average for Mother.
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 I feel like I had a final thought about Mother, and now I lost it. So let's talk about what you guys thought about Mother. If you agree or disagree, you can leave a comment below on SoundCloud, YouTube, or wherever you're finding this link, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you can get in touch with us, Instagram. We're on Snapchat now, HMF Podcast, email, Gmail, our website, all that good-ish. Matt, why don't we plug some links for you right before we go?
Okay.
Riverside
Guitar Duo on YouTube. Just search it up. You'll find our channel. Enjoy guitar music if you're so inclined. The Exits New Jersey on Facebook. You'll find all of our dates if you want to have a fun night of listening to your favorite 80s songs and 90s and reminisce and get drunk and enjoy a, I don't know, pretty good band.
and show in Saturday at
Saturday the 21st.
What was the time?
Towacco?
Toccoa.
I don't know. I've never heard of this. No disrespect to you, Towacco, New Jersey, but I've never heard of you before.
Hey, fuck this guy.
Rail
Us Towackans.
Rail Steakhouse will be
proud
there.
people.
So you can find all the information on there. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Mike. This was a blast.
Thank you for
love to come
coming
back
on.
if you'll have me. I hope I didn't show any amateurish critiquing of this movie because you
Fucking
guys
amateur over here.
because you guys are so well versed in this stuff, and I'm kind of just like the viewer.
Matt,
I had a lot of fun.
You
with
know,
this.
you held your own. We've been doing this since college.
We have. And I think I would be remiss if I didn't give a special shout out to Mr. Eric Dryberg for maybe making me sensitive to a lot of the things that were in this movie by subjecting me to cannibal Holocaust and Serbian film and
It's
things
true.
like that. But maybe I think Eric, you've
Ruined shock horror films.
You've taken a little bit of my soul away, and I think I have to just really respect you for that. No, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up Eric in this, just because I feel like he would have a lot of funny things to say about this movie. But
Eric
really
needs to come on this podcast.
Yeah.
That's all we need.
yeah, no, but really, thank you guys both. This was a lot of fun. If you'll have me back, I will certainly.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, of course.
Absolutely. I'm going to run through some links for us real quick, and then we'll get out of here.
Thank you, Eric, and all of your terabytes of things that you illegally downloaded for
Thank you
us.
for risking your freedom to download movies for us in college. But as I said before, we're on Snapchat now. HMF Podcast is the username. Please add us so we can let you know what's going on in our lives in videos that will disappear quickly from your phone. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. There's a link on our website, howmanyfingerspodcast.com. And as we said at the beginning of the episode, just watch our shit on YouTube. Put our playlist on loop if you can. We would really appreciate the extra views as we try to climb back to 10,000. Well, not back to, we've never been there before. 10,000 lifetime views so we can get monetization back, get external links back, be big boys on YouTube again. And you can rate us and review us on iTunes. There's a link on our website. Again, we'd really appreciate that. That's really good for our metrics and all that. You can subscribe to our mailing list on MailChimp. Again, link on our website, howmanyfingerspodcast.com. And as we said before, we're going to be doing giveaways on our Facebook Live broadcast segments. And the way to enter those is to subscribe to our mailing list. So if you would like a koozie completely free of charge, some sticky stickers free of charge, subscribe to our mailing list on our website. And again, koozies and stickers and t-shirts and all three in a package deal for $11.99. You can find all of that at howmanyfingerspodcast.bigcartel.com. And as always, an Amazon link and an iTunes link on our website. Click on either. Anything you purchase within each respective platform within the next 24 hours, we'll get a nice cut of. Easy way to support the podcast without going too far out of your way. that about does it. Matt, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, boys.
Darren, thanks for
opening up
trying.
this discussion.
Signing out for How Many Fingers the Podcast. I'm Mike.
I'm Joe.
I'm Matt.
I'm
And
Darren. It's going to be one movie, and then it's going to be another movie. This is a terrible Brooklyn accent.